Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to dig into complex topics, pull out the key insights from different sources, and basically give you a shortcut to getting informed.
And today, we are heading into some pretty wild territory. Think about those unexplained events. A pilot vanishing after reporting a UFO, cattle found mutilated with no blood.
Right, strange stuff.
Yeah.
What if those aren't just isolated mysteries? What if they're pieces of, I don't know, a much bigger puzzle that's deliberately kept hidden?
Exactly. That's the territory we're exploring. Like October 1978, you have this experienced pilot, Frederick Valentich, flying a Cessna near Australia.
Oh,
He radios air traffic control, reports seeing a large aircraft, describes 4 bright lights. Then he says there's this green, glowing, metallic thing orbiting his plane.
orbiting him.
Yeah. His engine starts running rough. He reports a loud metallic noise and then just silence.
And they never found him. Or the plane.
Never. Gone. The official line. He somehow got disoriented, flew upside down, crashed into the water. Simple accident.
Simple, maybe? But doesn't sound quite right, given the radio call. So what's the alternative?
Well, that disappearance really kicks off our source for today. It's a pretty unique book called The Cosmic Conspiracy by Stan Deyo.
Stan Deyo. Okay. And what's the book's angle?
It claims to be an insider's perspective, like someone who is on the inside revealing this huge global conspiracy involving UFOs, secret tech that's been suppressed.
For technology, like what?
We'll get into it, but think advanced propulsion, maybe even energy sources. Deyo claims the book lays out truths the public isn't told about, alien agendas, secret science, even big global changes that might be coming.
Wow, okay. That's a lot. It sounds like it challenges, well, pretty much everything we think we know.
It absolutely does. It paints a picture of reality that's way more complex, maybe even manipulated, than we usually assume.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack Deyo's book. We'll pull out the most important claims, the surprising bits, the so-called evidence he presents, and just try to help you understand the story he's telling straight from the source.
It's quite a narrative.
Definitely sounds like it.
Okay.
Let's dive in. Now, you mentioned the Valentich disappearance really kicks things off. I heard the author, Deyo, actually had a kind of personal link to it. How did he find out?
Yeah, it's quite a story in the book. He says he was literally having breakfast when he got a phone call about it right after it happened.
Immediately.
Apparently. And his first thought wasn't accident. He suspected Valentich had stumbled onto something, that he'd discovered their little game, as Deyo puts it.
Their little game. That's ominous. What game?
Well, Deyo felt this suspicion was confirmed later when Valentich's father told him his son had seen classified stuff at an RAAF base, Royal Australian Air Force, that apparently backed up his belief in UFOs.
So Deyo saw this not as a one-off, but part of a pattern. What else did he point to?
Exactly. He links it to other really bizarre incidents. He argues they all point towards these intelligently controlled electric flying saucers.
Electric flying saucer? Okay, like what other incidents?
There's the case of Chilean Army Corporal Armando Valdez in April '77. He reportedly encountered a bright flying light, vanished for about 15 minutes, but when he reappeared, his watch showed 5 days had passed, and he had a beard growth to match. A sort of time slip.
5 days and 15 minutes. That's hard to wrap your head around.
Tell me about it. Then there's the Iranian incident, September '76. 2 Iranian F-4 interceptor jets scrambled to intercept the UFO. They tried to fire missiles.
Yeah.
Their weapon systems failed. Couldn't fire. One pilot reported an object detaching from the main UFO and heading straight for him before his systems went dead. Later, there was apparently an explosion. The pilots died, and the whole thing got classified by the U.S. Defense Department. Still is, apparently.
So direct interaction,
Yeah.
systems failing. That's chilling. What else?
Then you have the electrified cattle phenomenon, March 1975, across the U.S. and Canada. Over 200 cattle found dead.
Mutilated cattle, right. I've heard about those.
Yeah, but the details Deyo highlights are specific. Surgical-like incisions, organs removed, often the blood completely drained, and crucially, no tracks around the carcass, but sometimes strange radiation or burn marks on the ground.
No blood, surgical precision. How does Deyo explain that?
He connects it to Nikola Tesla's research on high-voltage electrical discharges. Tesla apparently found that intense discharges could rupture skin, causing blood to rush out almost invisibly like a fine spray. The surgical precision, Deyo implies, might be from highly focused energy beams.
That's slow. We'll definitely need to come back to him. Any other examples Deyo uses Astronauts, maybe.
Oh, yeah. He mentions astronaut James McDivitt on Gemini the 4th in '65. McDivitt apparently photographed a white cylindrical object with a sort of pole sticking out.
And the photos.
Vanished, according to Deyo, never released publicly by NASA with that description. Then there's Gordon Cooper, another Mercury astronaut. He reported seeing metallic, saucer-like objects over Germany in the '50s before his NASA days. Said they made maneuvers impossible for conventional aircraft, instant stops, sharp 90-degree turns.
Okay, so pulling all these threads together, Valentich, Valdez, Uran, the cattle, the astronauts, what picture does Deyo paint? What are these things?
Based on all this, he deduces 10 specific characteristics for these electric flying saucers.
10. Okay, lay them on me.
Right. So 1, obviously electrically powered. 2, they generate intense, scorching heat. 3, they create resonating magnetic fields.
Makes sense if they're electric.
4, they ionize the air around them, giving them that bright metallic glow or luster. 5, they can interfere with electrical systems, like in the Iranian case.
Okay.
6, they can apparently cause physiological effects, like burns or even temporary paralysis. 7, they move silently or with just a humming sound sometimes. 8, they can hover motionless.
And the last 2.
9, this is a weird one. He claims they can inject pain or even subliminal suggestions into living beings.
Subliminal suggestions, like mind control from a craft.
That's the implication. It suggests a level of interaction way beyond just flying around. And finally, 10. The electric field itself protects the craft and occupants, allowing for those high-speed, high-G maneuvers without structural failure or injury.
That last one is key, isn't it? It explains the impossible maneuvers Cooper saw. And the subliminal suggestion idea, that's pretty disturbing. It shifts them from just vehicles to something else entirely.
It really does. It implies intelligence, control, and a technology that interacts directly with biology and maybe even consciousness.
Okay, so we have these accounts, these deduced characteristics.
Yeah.
But Deyo doesn't just leave it at they're out there, does he? He suggests maybe they're not entirely alien.
That's exactly where he goes next. He argues that this isn't necessarily something new or entirely extraterrestrial. He points to a hidden history right here on Earth of suppressed technology, specifically anti-gravity research.
Anti-gravity, like real research. When?
He starts back in the 1950s. He talks about something called the Talbert series, articles in the New York Herald Tribune from November 1955. The writer, Ansel Talbert, was their military and aviation editor.
And what did Talbert write about?
He described major U.S. scientific efforts to, quote, conquer gravity. And get this, he named names involved in this almost incredible program. People like Dr. Edward Teller, father of the H-bomb, and J. Robert Oppenheimer.
Teller and Oppenheimer on anti-gravity. Wow.
That's what Talbert reported. And the vision described in those articles was stunning for the time. Think spaceships that could accelerate instantly thousands of miles per hour without the crew feeling G-forces through artificial electrogravitational fields. The idea, pushed by William P. Lear, yes, that Lear of Learjet fame, was that these fields could have their polarity controlled to essentially cancel out gravity.
Lear was involved too, and he thought this was feasible back then.
Absolutely. Up-Down News even notes Lear later predicted actual teleportation might be possible by the late 80s or early 90s based on this line of thinking.
Teleportation. Okay, that's a big leap. But was this just theory, or did they have evidence?
Well, Deyo points to March 1956. A respected aviation magazine, Interavia, published an article called Towards Flight Without Stress or Strain or Weight.
Sounds promising.
It openly confirmed electrogravitics research was happening globally. It named specific companies working on it, like Lear Inc., Bell Aircraft, and others. And crucially, it mentioned empirical tests.
Tests? What kind of tests?
Tests showing that metals, when subjected to these fields, could have their weight reduced by 30%, or even potentially become negatively weighted, essentially, want to float away.
They measured weight reduction. That sounds like proof of concept. Was there a specific technology behind it?
Deyo focuses on the work of Dr. Townsend T. Brown. Brown developed these electrically propelled disc-shaped airfoils.
Flying saucers, basically.
Well, small models. His 2-foot diameter discs, charged with around 50,000 volts, apparently achieve speeds of 17 feet per second in his lab. Deyo states that Brown got much more impressive and highly classified, results at higher voltages later on.
Okay, so small scale, but working models.
Yeah.
How did they supposedly overcome G-forces for high-speed flight?
The core concept, as Deyo explains it, is that this gravitic field doesn't just push the craft. It acts on all matter within its influence simultaneously. The craft, the crew, the air inside everything.
Ah, So there's no differential force. The pilot isn't being slammed against the structure because the field is moving everything together.
Exactly. That eliminates the structural strain and the physiological effects of G-forces, allowing for those instant accelerations and sharp turns.
That is a fundamental shift in thinking about propulsion. So did this research get officially acknowledged anywhere else?
Deyo cites a document from December 1956 called The Gravitic Situation, published by a group called Gravity Rand Ltd. In London. And according to him, this document just flat out stated, mankind has developed anti-gravity.
It just said it, plain as day.
That's the claim. It also mentioned something called Project Winterhaven, focused on electrogravitics for the military, and even hinted at weapon applications using the tech to disrupt atomic bonds for demolition purposes.
Okay, this is painting a picture of intense, classified research in the West. Was it just the U.S. and maybe the U.K.?
Not according to Deyo. He claims the Russians were deep into it too. He mentions Dr. Andrei Sakharov, the famous physicist and later dissident, as leading Soviet anti-gravity efforts.
Sakharov, really?
And he cites a supposed defector, Dr. Bruno Pontecorvo, who allegedly demonstrated a working gravitic aircraft for the Soviets as early as 1961, plus Major Alexander P. de Seversky, another aviation pioneer, apparently showed off a working model of an ion-propelled aircraft in 1964.
So research happening on both sides, working models. It begs the question, doesn't it? If all this was happening in the 50s and 60s, why aren't we all flying around in anti-gravity cars? Why did it all just vanish from the public eye?
That is the million-dollar question. And Deyo claims he has a very personal and frankly quite disturbing answer based on his own experiences.
His own experiences. How did he get involved?
He writes that he was basically recruited. While living in the U.S., he says he was approached by a very secret American research and development organization who wanted him to finish his own research into anti-gravity, but in Australia.
Why Australia?
That's not entirely clear from the text, but it seems linked to U.S.-Australia defense connections. He says he then met a Dr. James R. Maxfield, a radiologist with high-level connections.
And what did Maxfield tell him?
Maxfield apparently revealed there had been over 50 anti-gravity-related research projects in the U.S. alone since 1948. 50, and that Maxfield himself, along with Dr. Edward Teller again, had sort of sponsored other young minds like Deyo's to pursue these secrets of gravitational energy.
So they identified him and brought him into this hidden world.
Seems like it. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Deyo describes a meeting in Melbourne with scientists from the Aeronautical Research Laboratories, the ARL.
What happened there?
He says they confirmed his own anti-gravity theory works, but they're apparently baffled about how he'd figured it out. And then the conversation took a darker turn.
How so?
They started talking about U.S. and Canadian mind control experiments. M-Cultra type stuff, maybe? They mentioned these experiments often resulted in subjects, quote, going mental or suiciding.
Jeez. Why bring that up with him?
Deyo suggests they suggested his mind might be somehow tuned to tap into other people's subconscious minds, implying maybe that's how he got his insights. A very unsettling idea.
Tuned in, that's creepy. Did they try to stop him after that?
Well, things got difficult. He mentions that the RAAF, the Australian Air Force, reportedly had extensive motion picture libraries of these flying saucers, actual footage, but he was denied access.
They had footage and wouldn't let him see it.
According to him, yes. Then his own scientific papers on the subject were suddenly classified by the government, and shortly after, his home was broken into, though apparently nothing obvious was taken.
Classified papers, break-ins. That sounds like pressure. Serious pressure.
Definitely. He also describes unofficial visits from intelligence operatives who basically tried to warn him off, to silence him.
Did it work? Did he stop talking?
No. He says he decided the only way forward was to go public. He started trying to spread the word through Australian radio and TV appearances. He claims the public response was overwhelming, huge interest. So he paints this picture of discovering the secret, being partly brought in, but then facing suppression when he wouldn't stay quiet.
It's a compelling narrative of fighting against secrecy. So we've got UFOs, suppressed anti-gravity. Where does Nikola Tesla fit into all this? You mentioned him with the cattle incidents.
Right, Tesla is absolutely central to Deyo's thesis. He calls Tesla the most distinguished inventor of modern times, but argues his name and, more importantly, his most revolutionary work have been deliberately suppressed in the interests of national security.
We know Tesla for AC electricity, radio basics, the Tesla coil. Amazing stuff. But suppressed. What specifically?
Deyo focuses on something Tesla discovered way back in 1899 during his experiments in Colorado Springs. Tesla called it terrestrial resonance.
Terrestrial resonance, what's that?
Tesla found that the Earth itself could act as a massive electrical conductor. He figured out how to send powerful electrical waves through the Earth and its atmosphere. Not just radio signals for communication, but usable electrical power.
Wait, wirelessly transmit electricity on a global scale, using the Earth itself?
That's exactly it. In his Colorado experiment, he famously generated voltages over 100 million volts and sent waves through the Earth. He lit lamps miles away without wires. He claimed he had resonated the entire Earth.
That's mind-blowing if true. He essentially proved you could power the world without a grid of wires.
That was his vision. Deyo explains Tesla saw the Earth as a gigantic spinning ball of electric fluid. He believed that sending energy into it at the right frequency would create standing waves, like ripples on a pond, but electrical. These waves would form an immense global grid system, allowing power to be broadcast anywhere.
Unlimited, potentially free energy for everyone. You can see why maybe some powers wouldn't want that getting out.
Yeah.
Does Deyo claim this technology is being used today, but secretly?
Oh, absolutely. He connects Tesla's work directly to the existence of modern, powerful VLF, very low-frequency radio transmitters operated by military and intelligence agencies.
VLF stations.
Yeah.
Like the ones used for submarine communication.
Yes, but Deyo suggests they're doing much more. He specifically points to the joint U.S.-Australian facility at Pine Gap in Central Australia. There are rumors, he notes, of an incredibly deep shaft there, maybe 28,000 feet deep.
A 5-mile deep hole. Why?
Deyo speculates it could be used as a massive underground antenna, a way to directly interface with the Earth's strata to tune a gigantic standing wave field around the entire planet, just like Tesla envisioned.
Using the Earth itself as part of the antenna. And Pine Gap isn't the only one, right?
No. He mentions the US VLF station at the Northwest Cape of Australia. Interestingly, it's antipode. The point directly opposite it on the globe is in the Bermuda Triangle.
The Bermuda Triangle. Really, that's a suggestive link, given all the stories of strange electrical phenomena there.
Isn't it? He also notes US VLF stations at the South Pole and a major Russian VLF station near Riga, Latvia. It suggests a global network.
Okay, so a secret global energy grid based on Tesla's work. But Deyo links these stations to more than just power, right? You mentioned weapons.
Yes. The rumors Deyo relays about Pine Gap aren't just about power. They include things like high-voltage plasma accelerators, possibly creating a death ray or plasma cannon, and also broadcasting specialized power frequencies specifically designed to fuel hypothetical electric submarines that might use this Tesla tech.
A plasma cannon. He claims this is real.
He cites an incident from 1973 where he claims a U.S. shipboard plasma cannon accidentally destroyed an Australian target drone during exercises. And this ties into another claim, the existence of EMP vehicles.
EMP, electromagnetic propulsion, not the pulse that fries electronics.
Correct. Electromagnetic propulsion. Vehicles supposedly driven by powerful electromagnetic fields, possibly drawing power wirelessly from this Tesla grid. Deyo even mentions a projected public release date for such vehicles was apparently slated for around 1978-1979, which obviously didn't happen.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, so secret energy grids, potential superweapons, advanced propulsion. If this tech exists, the implications are huge. What about weather? Can you weaponize the weather with this?
That's another major and frankly terrifying claim in the book. Deyo argues that Tesla's principles are being used by both the US and Russia specifically for weather warfare.
How would that even work?
He talks about an extraordinary blocking effect reported in global weather patterns around 1977. He claims this was caused by very large standing waves of electromagnetic energy generated by these VLF stations, deliberately set up to interfere with normal atmospheric circulation.
Blocking weather systems, what was the result?
According to Deyo, world weather going haywire. He cites examples like unprecedented snow in Miami, massive floods in Europe, severe droughts elsewhere, all potentially linked to this artificial interference.
That sounds like science fiction, but are there any hints this was being considered officially?
Deyo points to a 1974 Associated Press report titled "The Weather as a Secret Weapon." It apparently indicated that despite official denials from the Pentagon, research was underway.
Research was underway. Okay.
And then, in 1975, the Soviet Union actually introduced a resolution at the UN trying to outlaw weather modification research for military purposes. The resolution specifically mentioned things like creating artificial tsunamis or using acoustic fields over oceans to target ships.
The Soviets tried to ban it. That implies they believed it was possible, maybe even that someone was doing it.
That's certainly the implication Deyo draws, and it gets even more disturbing. He cites Dr. Gordon MacDonald, a prominent geophysicist who advised U.S. presidents. MacDonald apparently suggested back in the 60s that deliberately creating enhanced electrical oscillations in the Earth's atmosphere could be used to impair human brains over large areas.
Impair brains. Like mass psychological warfare.
Causing subtle effects, maybe a small but measurable reduction in a person's performance, according to MacDonald's reported suggestion. Deyo connects this potential to the VLF fields. He also claims these fields could be used to destabilize and melt polar ice caps, or even guide lightning strikes to specific targets anywhere on Earth. He draws a parallel between guiding lightning and a specific biblical prophecy.
Wow. Okay. Directing lightning, melting ice caps, maybe even influencing thoughts.
Yeah.
If this level of control is possible, it explains why control over these VLF stations would be so critical.
Exactly. Deyo argues it would inevitably lead to an intense power struggle between the major powers, the U.S. and Russia primarily, to control the most strategic locations for these global VLF broadcasts.
And the weather modification aspect.
Yeah.
Was there ever any formal agreement on that beyond the Soviet proposal?
This is one of the most astonishing claims Deyo makes. He says that in 1975, U.S. and Soviet delegates actually presented a draft treaty to the UN that proposed banning 19 specific types of man-made environmental warfare.
19. What was on the list?
Get this. Triggering avalanches and landslides, deliberately awakening volcanoes, causing earthquakes and tsunamis, steering hurricanes, melting ice caps, and even destroying the ozone layer over enemy territory.
They listed all that in the draft treaty.
According to Deyo, yes, 19 distinct ways to wage war using the environment itself. The fact that they felt the need to list these specific things, Deyo argues, strongly suggests they knew these things were at least theoretically possible. It's a chilling list.
Absolutely chilling. It implies a known capability, or at least a feared potential, far beyond anything publicly discussed. Just wow.
And this leads into another related area Deyo explores. Natural cycles, planetary alignments, and their potential effects on Earth, possibly amplified by solar activity.
So moving from man-made disasters to potentially natural ones.
Or maybe a combination. He mentions Dr. John Gribbin, the astrophysicist, who predicted a possible mini ice age linked to declining sunspot activity cycles. But Deyo also cites a 1976 CIA report.
The CIA, what did they report?
This CIA report apparently warned of impending major world climate changes that could lead to economic and political upheavals almost beyond comprehension. It predicted widespread famine, potential mass migrations, even suggesting India might lose 150 million people.
A CIA report predicting climate catastrophe back in '76. That's prescient. Or alarming, depending on how you look at it.
And Deyo links this potential instability to measurable Earth changes. He presents statistics showing a dramatic increase in major earthquakes, Richter 6 or higher.
Increase? How much?
He says between 1897 and 1946, the average was only about 3 major quakes per decade. Then it started climbing rapidly. By 1971, there were 34 in that single year. Between 1967 and 1976, he counts 180 quakes over Richter 7, a huge jump.
That's a staggering increase. What does he attribute it to?
He points to the sun. He argues that specific alignments of the planets gravitationally influence the sun, triggering more intense sunspot activity and solar flares. These flares blast out increasingly more violent sprays of charged particles and short wavelength radiations, what we now call the solar wind or coronal mass ejections.
And this solar activity affects Earth?
Significantly.
Yeah.
He says it can actually alter Earth's rotation speed slightly, which can stress tectonic plates. He even mentions that increased solar activity caused atmospheric drag that made Skylab fall from orbit earlier than expected.
Right, I remember Skylab. So more intense solar activity triggered by planets leads to more earthquakes and maybe climate shifts.
That's the connection he makes. He notes massive sunspots observed in 1978 and links periods of high solar activity not just to geological events, but also to changes in human behavior, increases in suicides, industrial accidents, even heightened susceptibility to disease.
So a cosmic influence on everything from rocks to human psychology.
Pretty much. And he took it further. Deyo apparently used computer modeling based on relative planetary positions to predict future peaks in this disruptive solar activity. His graph, published in the book, showed a major, potentially disastrous peak coming in February 1982.
1982. Did anything happen?
Well, the book was published before then, so it was a prediction. He claimed the cumulative stressful effects could last until after 1986. He even tried to correlate past peaks in his model with major historical events, wars, revolutions, and even controversially biblical events like Noah's flood and the Exodus.
He linked planetary alignments to Noah's flood.
Okay, that's stretching credibility for many, I'd imagine.
It's definitely one of his more speculative claims, but it all feeds into a sense of impending crisis, potentially both natural and maybe man-made or exacerbated. And one final piece he adds is about government preparedness.
Preparedness for what? Nuclear war or these disasters?
That's the question he poses. He notes that in 1977, President Carter's administration
Noah's Ark. Seriously. Seriously. It reportedly involved constructing 96 deep underground bunkers or bolt holes across the U.S., designed to house about 6,500 key government officials and personnel in a crisis.
Okay, bunkers make sense for nuclear war survival, but why call it Noah's Ark?
Exactly Deyo's point. The name strongly implies preparation for a massive flood or weather-related cataclysm, not just nuclear fallout. He points out that extensive underground facilities, like the famous Mount Weather Complex in Virginia, already existed, suggesting Noah's Ark might be for something different.
It certainly makes you think. Okay, so just to recap this part. We've got claims of weather warfare using Tesla tech, official documents hinting at these capabilities, links between planetary cycles, solar activity, earthquakes, climate change, and even government projects seemingly preparing for a non-nuclear catastrophe. It's a dense web of connections.
It is. And all these external phenomena, the UFOs, the suppressed tech, the potential Earth changes, Deyo argues, can only be truly understood if we also rethink our fundamental understanding of physics itself.
So now we get to the underlying science or pseudoscience, depending on your view.
Right. He basically says standard physics is incomplete, maybe even wrong in key areas. His biggest argument is for the return of the ether, specifically a luminiferous ether, or what he calls fluid space.
The ether. Didn't the Michelson-Morley experiment disprove that back in the 1880s?
That's the standard story, but Deyo argues Michelson-Morley failed to detect it only because their experiment was designed incorrectly to measure linear motion through the ether. He claims later rotational experiments, like the Sagnac experiment in 1913 and another by Michelson and Gale in 1925, did successfully detect the ether's effect relative to rotation. He claims these results were ignored or misinterpreted to uphold Einstein's relativity.
So he's saying there is a medium-filling space, a fluid space, and it's been experimentally verified but ignored. How does Einstein fit in?
Deyo's take is that Einstein's special relativity, particularly Im-si-so-ba, actually relied on the properties of this fluid space implicitly. But Einstein then made a mistake by declaring the speed of light an absolute, unbreakable limit.
A mistake. What does Deyo propose instead?
He suggests that craft, using the principles of electrogravitics, could create a warp in this fluid space, what he terms the inertial curl of space around the craft.
Inertial curl, like bending space-time.
Sort of, yeah. By manipulating this curl, a craft could theoretically exceed the speed of light relative to the undisturbed fluid space outside its warp field. He compares the effect to a sonic boom when you break the sound barrier. Breaking the light barrier in this fluid space, he says, would produce a similar effect with light, known as Cherenkov radiation. So these hyperlight craft would essentially be surfing on a self-generated wave of warped space.
Creating their own physics bubble to travel faster than light. That's a radical idea. Does he claim Einstein ever acknowledged issues with relativity?
Deyo mentions rumors or claims that Einstein himself later admitted a fundamental error in relativity and was working towards a unified field theory, one that presumably would have incorporated these ether concepts, though Einstein never completed it publicly.
Okay, so if space is a fluid, how does that change our understanding of basic forces like gravity and magnetism?
Deyo offers a drastically simplified, almost mechanical view. He argues gravity isn't really a pull force between masses. Instead, it's a resultant effect, maybe a pressure or shadowing effect, caused by bidirectional forces or flows within this fluid space. And its strength varies with the angular velocity, the spin of objects.
So gravity is a push, not a pull, related to flows in the ether.
That's his concept. And magnetism, he says, is a very similar phenomenon, just operating at the atomic level, resulting from the spin and orbit of subparticles within atoms. Both gravity and magnetism, in his view, are fundamentally about dynamic forces and flows in this ether, which means they can potentially be tapped as sources of power.
Dynamic forces. Okay, how does this tie back to the flying saucers, the propulsion system?
He puts it together in what he calls electrodynamic propulsion. He even includes a conceptual diagram, figure 11 in the book, of an ion-powered saucer craft.
How does it supposedly work?
It uses powerful high-voltage electric currents, probably drawn from the ether or this Tesla grid. These currents are directed to essentially ramjet the fluid space medium itself, attracting it at the front, ionizing it, accelerating it through or around the craft, and expelling it at the rear to create thrust and lift.
Like a jet engine, but using space fluid instead of air.
Kind of. But the key is the entire craft and everyone inside become part of the high-voltage circuit. This polarizes all the mass within the generated field.
Connecting back to the simultaneous action idea.
Exactly. Because everything inside the field is uniformly polarized and moved by the field, you don't get those internal stresses. That's how Deyo explains being able to, as he puts it, turn a corner at 25,000 miles per hour without spilling a drop of tea. Structural fatigue and G-forces just become irrelevant.
It's a neat, if highly unconventional, explanation. Does this tech have other applications besides just flying fast?
Deyo claims that by manipulating the frequency, power, and voltage of these electrodynamic fields, you could achieve much more. Not just anti-gravity flight, but potentially invisibility, maybe by bending light around the craft and even light-speed translation from point to point, which sounds a lot like that teleportation idea Lear had.
Invisibility and teleportation.
Yeah.
It sounds like complete mastery over space and energy.
If Deyo's interpretation of this hidden physics is correct, yes, that's the potential he outlines.
Wow. Okay, we have journeyed through some absolutely extraordinary territory today. I mean, from puzzling UFO reports like Valentage to claims of decades of secret anti-gravity research involving huge names.
Right, then connecting it all to the largely forgotten potential of Nikola Tesla's work on wireless power and Earth resonance.
And how that might be used today in secret VLF networks for everything from energy transmission to, well, alleged weather warfare and even mining influence.
Tying into planetary cycles, potential Earth changes, secret government bunkers, and finally, a whole new model of physics based on fluid space and electrodynamics.
Yep.
A lot to process.
It really is. Deyo's book, The Cosmic Conspiracy, definitely presents a version of reality that's far, far more complex and potentially far more controlled by hidden hands than most of us ever imagine. It suggests that knowledge, power, technology, maybe even the planet's future could rest with a very select few.
It certainly paints that picture, a hidden layer beneath the world we see every day.
So thinking about everything we've unpacked from Deyo's work today, what's the one claim or connection that really stands out to you? The one that makes you pause and think, what if? And perhaps more importantly, if even a fraction of these ideas about suppressed science or hidden agendas shaping our world were true, what does that mean for us? What responsibility might you, as someone trying to understand the world, have to question the official narratives and maybe dig a little deeper?
That's the big question, isn't it? How much do we question and where do we draw the line between healthy skepticism and falling down a rabbit hole? It definitely leaves you with a lot to chew on.